Sechus Kiddushin Daf Beis. We begin the new Masechta with a description of how a woman can be acquired, that is how she can get married, and develop an exclusive relationship with her husband. And then the Mishnah talks about how she can acquire herself, meaning how she can leave her relationship with her husband and become in control of her own heterim. We'll also talk about how that applies to Yibum and ending the Yibum connection. By means of introduction, the term acquiring is used here with regards to a marriage. Generally, the concept of property is not one that applies to a marriage, but there is a common ground between property and marriage, and that is that property is a construct which implies exclusivity between an item and its owner. There is no such concept in simplest understanding as property. There is just a relationship, which is that this property is exclusive to its owner and no one else has rights to make use of it. The concept of marriage is in a similar vein. The woman has exclusive relationship to her husband. No one else has the right to interfere and to make use of her, as it were, in any such way. We're also going to talk about Kiddusha, the word Mikudeshes, which also implies exclusivity, but in a sense of holiness, not in a sense of personal use, but in a sense of, not in a sense of personal, but in a sense of holiness, that she is exclusive in her holiness to him and not to anyone else. The word Kadesh, of course, means set apart. So let's begin the Mishnah. The Mishnah says that there are three ways. It lists three ways. It says the number three, it uses the term shalish, which is the feminine form of the number three. The three ways, three drachim, in which a woman can be acquired. That is how she can develop this exclusive relationship with her husband. They are with money or valuables, with a contract, and with bia, which is marital relations. How does this work? So the Mishnah explains. Money is that he gives her either money or something of value. What is the minimum amount? Is a machlokes Beis Shammai Beis Hillel. Beis Shammai says it is a dinar. Beis Hillel says it is a pruta. The Gemara defines a pruta as being 1/8 of an Italian isser. A pruta is a copper coin. Italian isser is a silver coin, which is worth 8 prutas. Now she can acquire herself in only two ways, and that is either through divorce, that is, her husband gives her a get, a bill of divorce, which we just saw at Lenta Mesachas Gittin, or with the death of her husband. She's not exclusive to anyone, and therefore she returns to her own rishus. Now, a Yavama is a woman who's fallen to Yibum. She had been married to someone, they didn't have children, he died. Now she falls to Yibum, to her brother, that is, she has a connection to his brother, that is, she has a connection to her husband's brother. That connection can be either made into a regular marriage through bia. There is no other way. For her to get freed from that, it can be either through chalitza, which breaks the yibum bond, or through the death of the yavam, in which case there's no one to have a bond with. That's the Mishnah. Now we begin the Gemara, and like every Gemara, the Gemara always begins with linguistic issues and clears them up. This Mishnah has quite a few linguistic issues the Gemara wants to focus on, several even on individual words, and that will take us most of the daf, and then the Gemara will use this as a springboard to discuss linguistic issues in other Mishnayos. So the Gemara's first linguistic issue is on the word niknis, that the woman is acquired. Why do we use the term kinyan, acquisition, instead of using the term mikudeshes, becomes holy? They both imply exclusivity, but in our next parak we talk about mikadesh. We say ha'ish mikadesh, the man can give kiddushin through two ways. Why over there do we use the term kiddusha to imply exclusivity, and here we use the term kinyan to imply exclusivity? So the Gemara answers, the reason is because we are here using the term kesef. One of the things we are saying is that she can be acquired through money. That is, if he gives her monetary or value, if he gives her money or valuables in exchange for herself, for her exclusivity, as it were. And that, we're going to say, is learned out of Avram Avinu's purchase of Ephron's field from Maras HaMachpelah, and there it's learned out of the term kicha. It says there, it says by marriage ki yikach eshisha, and in Avram's purchase it says v'nasati kesef hasada kach mimeni. So therefore we are learning from the acquisition of a field, and as far as fields, the term kinyan is always used, like it says hasada asher kana Avraham over there in that sugya in Parashat Chayesara, or you have in Yirmiyahu, it says sadis bekesef yiknu. So since the term kinyan is used with regard to that, we want to use the term kinyan here with regards to this as well. So now the Gemara's question is, okay, I understand why you want to use the word kinyan here, but if you're going to use the word kinyan here, let's use the word kinyan in our next parak. Why over there do we talk about kiddushin? So the Gemara says, at first we're going to use the term that is deraisa, and then we're going to use the term derabana. The term Kiddushin is a rabbinical term for a marriage. Where does the word come from? The Gemara says that hektish is a term which implies that something is forbidden to everyone else, just like property which belongs to the Beis Hamikdash is called hektish. So too, hektish here, she implies that she is holy to him in the sense that she is forbidden on anyone else. She is reserved only for her husband. The Gemara's next linguistic question is, why do we speak about this marriage from the perspective of the woman, from the passive voice that she is acquired? Why don't we talk about the active participation? In this case, it's the man, just like we see in the next part, the man acquired, the man is Mekadesh. Let's talk about here about the man is Kaina. Why do we talk about it from the woman's perspective and use the passive voice? So the Gemara answers that the reason for that is because we are comparing how she's acquired to how she reacquires herself, and we want to say that she acquires herself in two ways, kainis atzma. So the Gemara said, so then let's also say, in the second half of the Mishnah from the husband's perspective, let's say that the first half will say that he is kaina her, and the second half will say that he's makna her. He grants her back to herself in two ways. The Gemara offers two answers. The Gemara says you can't say that he is makna her in the divorce because one of those two ways is the death of the husband. There he's not being makna anything, he's just disappearing, and it's Shemayim that's being makna to herself. Whereas second answer is that we didn't want to say that the husband is makna her even by the get, because if we were to use the word makna, if we were to say the husband is kaina her, as far as Kiddushin, that would imply that he has the right to marry her against her will, and that is all the way up to him, but of course that's not true. She has to accept it. It wouldn't be valid if she did not agree. This concludes the Gemara's analysis of the terms Mikadesh and Makneh. Now the Gemara asks, why does it say the number Shalosh, which is the feminine form of the number? It should have said Shleisha, which is a masculine form, generally used the masculine form of things. It's important to note in the numbers 2 through 10, the masculine form sounds like the feminine sounds like the masculine. 3 through 10, anything that ends with a hey is the masculine form, while the one that ends without the hey is the feminine form. So shalosh is the feminine form, we should say shleisha. So the answer is because it says shleisha derachim, it uses the term derech, meaning ways, and the word derech is found to be a feminine form, like it says, should teach them the ways in which they should go in it. Ba is the female form, ba as opposed to vai. So then we're asked, but we find the opposite. We find a brisa that talks about the checking of a zav. Zav is a flow that comes from the body. It could be either from a man or a woman. That's matame, in a very strict type of tumah. The halacha is that if a man has this flow that's caused by some type of disease or action, it's what we call an einus, then it's not matame. So we check him 7 different types of things which could have caused the ziva, and if we see that any of those applies, then it's not matame him. So there are 7 things that we check for. So it says b'shiva drachim b'odkim esazav. Over there we say shiva with a hey. We use the masculine form. Why do we use the masculine form? So the Gemara says because we wanted to say drachim, want to say derech, and derech is sometimes found to be actually the masculine form, like it says b'derech echad, masculine echad yetzu elacha v'shiva drachim, masculine drachim, shiva masculine yanusu lefanecha. So you see that the word derech is used masculine, so use the masculine. So says you have a contradiction. You have one pasuk that uses the word derachim and derech and feminine, one that uses it masculine. You have a contradiction between 2 psukim. You have a contradiction between 2 mishnahs, or mishnah and a brisa, as to whether or not he used the term in a feminine or masculine form. So how do you resolve these? So Amar says the contradiction between the psukim is not a kasha. When we're talking about Torah, we're talking about mitzvos, when we say haderach yelchu ba, so Torah is a feminine form. So we're going to use the feminine form, and that we know Torah is feminine, like it says Torah Hashem timima. It doesn't say tamim. Meshivas nafesh, not meshiv nafesh. Now, as far as talking about b'derech echad yetzer elach of shiv drachim yinusu levanacha, that's talking about war. So war is a masculine activity. It is the way of men to fight wars and not the way of women. And therefore we use the male form in that context. Now, as far as the 2 Mishnayos, our Mishnah, which is referring to a woman's Kiddushin, is talking about the woman, and therefore we use the feminine form, while the Mishnah about Zav only applies to a Zav, a male Zav, not to a Zava, because a Zava, a woman who has a Ziva, is Matame even if it is caused by something else, even if it's not caused by a disease, even if it's caused by an Oinus. Therefore, when we talk about checking for Oinsin, it only applies to a man, and therefore we use the male form. Okay, that concludes the Gemara's discussion of the term Shalosh and Shloisha. Now the Gemara asks, why did we say Derachim? You're telling me the only reason why we said Shalosh is because of Derachim. The general term for multiplicities is things. We don't say in 3 ways. We should say with 3 things. You should say that a woman is acquired with 3 things. We should say Devar. Why did we say Derachim? So the Gemara answers because one of the 3 things is Bia, and Bia is used in the term Derech, like it says, V'derech gever be'alma, the way of a man with a young girl, Kain derech isham and Ephes, that is the way of a Zoina. So you see that the term, as far as referring to Bia, it uses the term Derech, that's why we wanted to use Drachim. So Gemara says, okay, that makes sense for Bia. What about Kesef and Shtar? So the Gemara says, well, the reason is because of the Bia, not because of the Kesef and Shtar. We use the term Derachim because of the Bia aspect. So the Gemara says, why did you go with the 1 out of the 3? You should go with the 2 out of the 3. Say Devarim because of the 2 out of the 3. So the Gemara says, because all 3 are leading towards a Bia. Even the marriage through Kesef and Shtar are coming to a Bia eventually. Second answer, the Gemara says, is we want to use the term derachim to teach us the way, the normal way of the world. That the correct way of doing things is that the man searches for a wife, not that the wife goes searching for a man. This is something which we learned from Reb Shimon in a Brisa, and he says that it is the way of the man to look for the wife because she was taken from the bone that was taken from him, so it's like he's looking for his lost object. One searches for his lost object, the lost object does not search for the one who lost it. The Gemara now asks about other Mishnayos in which we have the term derachim instead of devarim. I'm not going to get to all of these in this daf. The first one the Gemara asks is again about zav. It says b'zayin derachim boidkin es zav. Why don't we say devarim? Whereas again, it's teaching us the normal way of things. It's teaching us the derech of the world. That the way of things is that zav can be caused by too much eating or too much drinking. Next, when we're asked about an esrog, it says that an esrog's halachos are similar to that of a tree in 3 ways, and similar to that of a vegetable in 1 way. So there it says drachim. The Gemara says that there the drachim is because in the 1 way we're going to say b'derech echad, and there we want to talk about b'derech echad because we're teaching the way in which an esrog is similar to a vegetable is because it grows on water of all seasons. It doesn't require, it's not seasonal. It grows and can be picked at any time based on how you irrigate it, just like vegetables.